Okay. This one goes out to every single boomer and Generation X parent. If your kids are not as well off as you are, you're part of the problem. If your family doesn't like you, you're part of the problem. And I don't just mean like they don't get along with you, but if they have openly told you the reasons why they don't get along with you, or they don't enjoy being around you, and you keep doing it, you're part of the problem. Because I'm sorry, millennials at this point are kind of just giving up. If you have 2 cars and your son has a jalopy, you give him one of your good cars and help him fix his. There's this weird notion with boomers and Xers that I've got mine, you have to earn yours. While not realizing that right now it is extremely difficult to make it in America. And after we tell our parents, hey, did you know that if we adjusted for the minimum wage of 1960 to have the same buying power today, it'd be like a $60 minimum wage. Look it up. And if you don't look it up, you're part of the problem. If your son is telling you that women are getting preferential treatment in work when it comes to promotions and raises and growth opportunities, and you say, oh, that's not true, and don't look into it, you're part of the problem. If your kid doesn't want to have kids, you are the problem. Boomers and Xers have made their kids feel like a burden. Most of us don't feel like our parents even wanted us. I don't think my parents ever loved me. They just went through the notion so nobody can accuse them of abuse. But sometimes we go to lunch with people from our church, a bunch of old people. And while we're in this, Olive Garden or Buffalo Wild Wings, all I see are 50-plus-year-old people. I don't see people my age. I don't see people younger than 30 for sure. Because we don't have money. Do you know why your son doesn't want to go to church? Probably because that time he spends in church, he needs to make money so that he can support his family with an ungrateful wife and kids that don't respect him. The reason people don't listen to you is because in order for us to reach the same economic stature of you or level as you, would it require literally impossible amounts of work and be still healthy and still be social. Believe it or not, humans are social animals and need time off to hang out with other humans, which, crazy enough, there's a huge loneliness epidemic, especially with millennial men. So if you are not looking into the very things that your kids are complaining about and trying to help, you are the problem. If you're driving a nicer car than your kids, you're part of the problem. You're supposed to make your kids better off than you. They're supposed to live better off than you. And all I hear are boomers saying that millennials are whiny. Thinking, well, your parents did it, why couldn't you? Because they think we learn by osmosis. That just being around it, we're going to absorb all this information. No, the bearings are going out in my car. I have a cracked windshield. But my grandparents found it more appropriate to take my bumper sticker off the back of their car because they enabled my parents to abuse me, and that's the only way they can get back at me. Instead of the fact that, We are going into a global depression. But boomers still want to argue over red team, blue team. Like, if you're not helping your kids, you're the problem. They should be able to move in, rent-free, not pay for anything. Because they're not as well off as you, and you're the reason why. We went to your schools, we did your homework, we went to your social clubs, we went to your churches, we hung out with your friends. And for some reason, everybody I know has a story about being or knowing someone being molested by family members or friends of families, schools, teachers, pastors, youth group workers, every single one. Every single one. Me was babysitter. So like, we're all traumatized from being over-sexualized, over-socialized, and told to think just like everybody else so that we can pass a standardized test. Why? Because that's going to make your world better when you do that. And when we did it, and I scored above average, but the reason I didn't get into honor society, because when I was younger I had behavioral issues, that's my parents' fault. Who's responsible for the child? The parents. Always. Forever. That's how family works. That's how a Christian family works. But Christians' families don't worship Christ anymore. They worship America. If you have time, if you can't go to church because you need to make money, what's more important in that section? That's right, America. If you can't afford to live on your own and your parents are blaming you for it, they're worshiping America. If like you're made to feel guilty because you couldn't afford to go to college, meanwhile your siblings that did go to college now have crippling debt, man, boomers, extra parents, listen to your kids. It's bad. Yes, you've been wrong about literally everything. I've not taken advice. 1 out of 10 times I take advice from boomer and extra parents. 1 out of 10 times. Because they're wrong about literally everything else. Literally. Like, completely wrong and disconnected. So we don't trust our parents and grandparents, the mentors of our life that led us to being abused and taken advantage of and neglected, now abandon us again to not be able to afford to do anything. Well, quit getting avocado toast and Starbucks. If that's the only argument you have, you are the problem. We're asking for help, and you're admonishing us on how we're doing it. You know, people are saying, man, you're just mean. Maybe if you weren't so mean, it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not being mean. I'm not saying anybody is going to hell or evil or bad for this. I'm saying that the problem I'm dealing with is being unable to live the American dream, and boomers and Xers are that problem. That's not saying anything other than identifying the sickness so we can have the treatment. So if boomers and Xers real quick could not have their feelings hurt for 5 seconds and actually act like adults, because believe it or not, I've yet to meet a boomer or Xer who acts older than 13 years old. You guys never grew up. You think sarcasm is a legitimate way to communicate? In junior high, maybe, okay? In a situation where your kids are dying from look up the number 1 cause of death for millennial men. And if you don't feel like that's a problem, you are the problem. We are struggling to make it, and any little impact we can make, we get admonished for even trying. Meanwhile, these are the same people that voted in that's funny. A boomer just pulled in front of a semi-truck. And that horn you heard was them laying it on. Like, they're a menace to society. Anyway. It's to the point now that it's from Florida too. And they're in my lane. Pick a lane, lady. What are you doing? This lady, she's drunk. Anyway, you know, driving a really nice car, being drunk, rush hour or, closing time, because it's more important for you to do what you want to do than me getting home safely to my family. Like, guys, you have to think about not yourself for once. You need to lower your living standards so that your children are better off, because that's your job as parents. And most of you have been very, very bad parents. If your kids did not have kids before 25, you failed. If your kids went to college and can't find a good job, you failed. And I'm sorry, that includes your voting habits. That includes, like, who you voted for even locally, or the fact that you didn't vote. All the millennials and zoomers right now that can't afford to live at the same standard you guys had at their age is because of your fault. Every minute, itsy bitsy bit of it. Because we can't do anything about it. And you guys put this in power while I was still in diapers. The 2008 crash, I should have bought a house there if I wasn't learning how to... What was that? 2008, I've been 8th grade. You know? Like, I'm sorry, your feelings don't matter anymore. And if you think your feelings do matter, you're part of the problem. And if you're willing to protect your feelings while millennials and zoomers die in droves to suicide and exposure because they're going homeless and living in their cars in Walmarts, you are the problem. I don't feel bad for you, and I'm a pacifist. I don't condone anything. There are people who are way less pacifist than me, who are way more capable than I am, getting just as angry. So if you do not give up what you have for your kids, you are the problem. Because your kids are dying, and you don't care.